We are happy now to welcome Silvia Bernardini. Silvia is the founder of an innovative expertise, certified innovation manager, and innovation-oriented consultant whose work integrates recognized experience in sustainability with a distinctly future-driven entrepreneurial mindset. She combines rigorous knowledge of European standards with a strategic capacity to guide organizations through transformative change. Her approach treats innovation and sustainability as operational principles rather than slogans, enabling companies to anticipate market and regulatory shifts. With a vision reminiscent of speculative futures, she translates complexity into direction and long-term value. So please, Silvia,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm very glad to be here, and I want to thank all the people attending. Next, please. Next slide, please. I'm going to show you what happens with our tool, EasySG. That is a tool that allows people to understand better how it's important to be really conscious when we decide to have a path about sustainability, especially for tourism and agri-food supply chain. Next slide, please. So the first thing is a reflection I did starting in 2014, just walking with some vineyard. And my question was, why? So why we should try to begin something if we don't understand that everything is connected in a complex and systemic way of living. So what I found interesting in studying about ESG is that we are talking not about a set of numbers, but we're talking mainly about compliance, principally. And we talk about resilience and another big value that is stewardship, that are all three main words that made us the possibility to understand the complexity of the context, and we are going to find a right path. Next slide, please. So what I've tried to let clear to everybody is what EasySG does, what our tool does, and why it matters for small and medium enterprises. Because we are not talking about a self-assessment, but we are talking about a tool designed for real organization, not only for large corporates. And I mainly decided these strategies because in Italy, the 85% of companies it's not a corporate, of course, it's a small or a medium enterprise. And the opportunity has been that of translates complex frameworks into clear questions, scores, and of course, practical recommendations. Next slide, please. So I have to thank really Marco Carpinetti and Francesco Zeralli because they just decided to test this tool. And of course, they allow us to make this interview that lasts about 2 hours to understand what kind of report can we have after this interview. Next slide, please. So the first release just after the interview was this score, a global score that underlined but the single score of environment, social responsibility, and governance. And I was really affected by the disappointed Marco Carpinetti to look at these results, because he, of course, said how it is so low and they do so much things to be sustainable. But sustainability is not what you do, is how your action impact on the territory. And if you are one, your impact is that of one. If you are lots of stakeholders that all goes towards the same goals, we can have a more big impact. So this first explanation is not just a score, but it's a first strategic guidelines to understand what we can really do over to arrive to that 5. because this tool has been based on the Likert scale to make it available under all Europe, even if now the first release is, of course, only in Italian language. Please, the next slide. After this first big score, macro score, we have a detailed ESG profile that is not a generic label, but it goes, thanks to macro categories, into the details activities that underline the visual distribution and the strategic priorities that allow to understand the different activity everybody should analyze when talking about sustainability. Next slide, please. So the environmental pillar that goes from the compliance to the territorial impact allow us to also understand, comment on what we are doing, because this score is the results of lots of comment of a synthesis of the 400 and more GRI standards put together to the Agenda 2020 of Europe. And we want just underline that on macro area, we can have a comment that allow us to understand better the real position of our activities and, of course, what we can do to improve our score. Next slide. The first, of course, was about environment pillar. The second is about social pillar, because it is not only nature, it is not only environmental, but it's also the social responsibility that allow us to grow in a new market with a new consciousness. So there are also comments about people, communities, and customer trust that underlines the scores about health and safety, human capital, and especially diversity and inclusion that shows about that this company, Carpinetti, has a big attention to all the new activity based, for instance, on gender gap, and give the opportunities to create different relations that impact on economic performance. On the next slide, we see about the governance. So how we are really aligned to the rules of our country, because it is not only about action we did, but it's also about the opportunities to be compliance to the rules of the single country. And in a corporate, we also, for instance, listen to what the lady of Emola said before. It was not effect of not be positive, but it is the necessity for a company to produce profit and to be active into the market. If we only think about environment, we cannot have the right responsibility and the right alignment to the legal activities that allow our company to be more and more sustainable. And this is also why a lot of credit brokers in this moment are asking us the tool, because it's really important not only to measure what is the environment pillar, but also the opportunity to underline that under a governance point of view, we can have a right management of money, so the project can be more and more financed, also under a social point of view, social responsibility point of view. So please, if you go to the next slide, it's easier now to understand why ESG doesn't mean it's easy to be sustainable, but it's important to understand easily if we are on the right path to be sustainable. And that is why small and medium enterprises need a different ESG system than corporates, because they need simple, scalable, and relevant tools to focus on what is really important to begin that set of small action, then we'll have a wonderful result if all the stakeholders works together towards the same goal. And that's why at the end of our report, there are also some hints to suggest what the company can do and how can share these results to other stakeholders to try to create a new kind of materiality that allow people to work better, have more wellness in a respectful way, both of environment and of governance of the company. So if we go to the next slide, we can understand that the real aim is to go from single organization to territory and value chain, not only with narratives, but mainly with comparable scores aligned with the EU Green Deal and the Farm to Fork objectives. And if we go to the next slide, we also understand how the use of this tool can design, can draw a practical roadmap for small and medium enterprise and their supply chain. So using the ESG profile to define a phased roadmap, make quick wins in the next 12 months and structure initiatives in 2 or 3 years that continuous monitoring afterwards and allow company to grow not only in prices, but also in sustainable action. So what we meant by also collecting all these data in an anonymous way is turning the ESG data into real collective action, finalized and focused on a shared platform for dialogue, alignment and continuous improvement along the tourism and the agri-food value chains. Because the next step, of course, should be that of extend this assessment that I remember is not a self-assessment, but is a semi-structured interview made by expert people to keep partners to co-design new sustainable project. As the last slides, I just have a little presentation of who we are and why it's so important for us to be sustainable in our vision and in our mission. And thanks to this perspective, in the next slide, we will see some prize we have obtained during the year. This year, in particular, we were finalists to the Green Award prize with this special tool. So I thank you, everybody, for your time and your patience, and I hope to have you again as a guest for other representation of other reports. And thanks again to Marco Carpinetti and Francesco Zaralli who gave me these opportunities.
Thank you, Silvia. Thanks a lot. And thanks again to all our speakers today for the precious intervention. I think we had several insights from several points of view. So already precious material may be interesting enough to arise some questions. I don't know if our public has some interest, some doubts. Now it's the moment for you, even if we are running a bit out of time, but yeah, we still have a couple of minutes for the questions if you still have some.